Let me tell you something very clear. Respect is not given, it is earned. And today, when you look at India, you see a nation that has forced the world to respect it, not through begging, not through weakness, but through sheer power, determination, and vision. The world does not only admire India, it fears the unstoppable force it has become. And that fear, my friends, comes from strength. India is no longer the country others can push around. It is a country that stands tall, unshaken by pressure, unbroken by threats. Whether it is on the battlefield, in the global market, or in the halls of diplomacy, India has shown it will not bend. That sends a clear message. Here is a nation that decides its own destiny, and that is why the world takes notice. The respect for India is rooted in its resilience. For centuries, this land has endured invasions, oppression, and challenges that could have crushed others. But India did not fall, it rose higher every single time. It transformed pain into progress, struggle into strength. That is the kind of spirit that builds legends, that creates leaders, and that makes 1 billion voices impossible to ignore. At the same time, India is not only feared for its might, but respected for its wisdom. When the world talks about technology, innovation, and leadership in science, India is there. When the conversation is about culture, philosophy, and knowledge, India is there. This combination of ancient wisdom and modern strength makes India a power unlike any other. It shows the world that greatness does not come from copying others. It comes from being true to your roots while moving forward with vision. What truly makes India powerful is its people. 1 billion dreams, 1 billion fighters, 1 billion builders who wake up every morning with the fire to create, to defend, and to grow. That energy is unstoppable, and when the world sees that, it knows this nation cannot be contained, it cannot be silenced, it cannot be ignored. Yes, the world respects India because of its achievements, but it also fears India because of its will, because when a nation refuses to kneel, when it chooses strength over surrender, when it dares to carve its own path, then it becomes a force of nature. That is what India is today. A storm of progress, a wall of resilience, and a beacon of power. And let me tell you this, the same principles apply to you. If you want respect, you must earn it. If you want to be taken seriously, you must stand firm. Show the world that you cannot be broken, that your vision cannot be stolen, and that your spirit cannot be crushed. That is how you command respect. That is how you create fear in those who want to see you fail. India is the living example of what strength, courage, and vision can achieve. It is not just a nation, it is an unstoppable force. And when you embody that same spirit in your own life, then nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand in your way. Respect is never handed out like a free gift. It is something forged in the fire of hard work, sacrifice, and unshakable determination. India's position in the world today is not a product of chance, luck, or charity. It is the result of centuries of persistence and decades of struggle to rise above every obstacle placed in its path. When people talk about respect, they often confuse it with sympathy or recognition. But real respect is something deeper. It is born when a nation proves itself, when it shows the world that it cannot be ignored, when it takes a stand that even the most powerful countries must acknowledge. India has done exactly that. For years, India was underestimated, treated as a land that could be pushed around, dictated to, and pressured into submission. But over time, India broke away from that image. The nation demonstrated that it is not simply surviving, it is thriving. The world today cannot write a story of the future without India in it. This transformation did not come from sweet words or empty promises. It came from bold actions, from an unshakable stance, from proving on the global stage that India will not bend to anyone else's agenda. That is how respect is earned, through undeniable strength and independence. Respect comes when a country builds its own identity. India has shown the courage to walk its own path, whether it was in science, defense, technology, or diplomacy. While others doubted, India launched satellites into space, built nuclear capability, developed its own industries, and carved its own foreign policy that doesn't follow someone else's script. When the world sees that kind of confidence, they cannot ignore it. And with recognition comes respect. But what makes India unique is that this respect is not just about power, it is also about principles. India earned its place by refusing to give up its values, by standing firm on the idea of sovereignty and dignity. Every nation that commands respect has faced moments where they had to prove themselves against overwhelming odds. India's history is filled with such moments, whether it was the long struggle against colonial rule or the tough years of building a new republic. Each trial shaped the nation's character. Each hardship became a stepping stone. When you rise from such challenges, you don't just demand respect, you command it. And the world today sees that India is not a follower, it is a leader, a voice of billions, and a power that cannot be overlooked. India has earned the respect of the world, not because it asked for it, but because it demanded it through its actions, its progress, and its refusal to kneel. The lesson is simple. Respect is never given to the weak. It is always earned by those who prove they are unbreakable. And today, India has proven exactly that. It is a nation that the world must respect, and yes, even fear. Respect also comes from consistency. A single victory does not earn lasting respect, but a consistent pattern of resilience and strength does. India has repeatedly shown the world that no matter the crisis, whether economic, political, or global, its resolve remains unshaken. It has proven that it can not only endure, but also grow stronger in the face of adversity. That is the kind of spirit that even the most powerful nations cannot help but admire. Respect is the natural outcome when determination is louder than doubt, when courage is stronger than fear, and when independence shines brighter than dependence. Fear is not created by words, it is created by the undeniable presence of power. When the world looks at India today, it sees more than a nation of over 1 billion people. It sees a force that cannot be ignored, a rising power that has the strength to shape the global balance. This fear is not about intimidation or aggression, but about recognition that India has reached a level where its decisions, its choices, and its actions can shift the direction of world events. The world fears India because it has finally understood that India is not dependent anymore. It is not waiting for approval or handouts from others. It has become a nation capable of charting its own destiny, and that kind of independence makes the biggest powers uneasy. The foundation of this fear lies in India's strength across multiple dimensions. Militarily, India has proven that it can defend its borders, protect its sovereignty, and stand firm against any adversary. With one of the largest standing armies in the world, advanced defense systems, and nuclear capability, India has made it clear that no one can bully it or dictate terms to it. The days of outside powers exploiting India are long gone. Now, any nation that dares to challenge India knows they will face consequences. This kind of strength builds a shield of deterrence, and deterrence creates fear in the minds of those who would otherwise try to undermine or overpower. Economically, India's growth story has added another layer to this fear. A nation once written off as poor and underdeveloped is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world. With a massive market, a booming middle class, and an innovative tech sector that rivals the best in the world, India is no longer a spectator, it is a competitor. For countries that have long enjoyed dominance over global markets, this is unsettling. They fear losing control, they fear being replaced, they fear that India's rise will challenge their monopoly. And make no mistake, fear grows when competition becomes real, when the underdog transforms into a contender who can no longer be underestimated. Diplomatically, India has also become a player that others fear because it refuses to bend under pressure. Whether it's the United States, Russia, China, or Europe, every global power now knows that India will not simply follow orders. It will act in its own interest. This independence of thought, this refusal to be controlled, terrifies nations that are used to dictating terms. When India says no, it means no. And that kind of sovereignty sends shockwaves through the corridors of power because they know they cannot push India around anymore. Even culturally and ideologically, India evokes fear because it represents a civilizational strength that is thousands of years old. Empires have come and gone, but India has endured. This endurance creates a sense of unease in other nations because they realize they are dealing not with a fragile system, but with a deeply rooted civilization that cannot be erased or broken. That cultural depth adds to India's aura of invincibility, and that is something every rival fears. The fear of India today is not about violence or domination. It is about respect for its undeniable rise. The world fears that India cannot be ignored, that its voice will always be heard, that its influence will only grow stronger. And this fear is powerful because it ensures that no nation will dare to underestimate India again. Fear and respect together have built India's new global identity. When the world looks at India's diplomatic moves today, it sees a nation that no longer bends or compromises its sovereignty for anyone. This independence in foreign policy is one of the strongest reasons why India is both respected and feared. For decades, Powerful nations expected India to follow their lead, to choose sides, and to align its interests according to their agendas. But that India no longer exists. Today, India is not taking orders from Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. Instead, it is making decisions based solely on what benefits its people, its security, and its future. This bold independence makes powerful countries uncomfortable because they realize that India cannot be manipulated, pressured, or bought. That is the essence of true strength, being able to stand tall even in the face of the world's greatest powers. Take, for example, India's stance on global conflicts. When the West demanded that India take a side, India stood firm, saying it will not blindly follow anyone's narrative. Instead, it evaluated the situation on its own terms and chose what was best for its national interest. That shocked the world. For the first time, major powers realized they could not count on India to simply support them out of obligation. This act of neutrality was not weakness. It was a display of immense confidence. Only strong nations can say no to pressure, and India has proven it has that strength. Powerful example is India's energy strategy. While certain nations tried to dictate who India should or shouldn't buy oil and gas from, India firmly stated that its priority is to ensure affordable energy for its citizens, not to please foreign governments. This stand unsettled the West because it showed India was not willing to sacrifice its economic stability just to appear obedient. India chose its people first, and that decision echoed across the globe as a reminder that no one has the right to interfere in India's domestic priorities. This independence extends beyond just economic or military matters. It is also about shaping global institutions. India has made it clear that the United Nations, the World Bank, and other international bodies need to be reformed to reflect modern realities. For too long, power has been concentrated in the hands of a few nations, while countries like India were sidelined. But now, India is demanding a seat at the table, not as a favor, but as a rightful claim. This terrifies the old guard of global politics, because they know India's entry will shift the balance of power forever. India's diplomatic independence also resonates with other nations that are tired of being dominated. Smaller countries, especially in Asia and Africa, look up to India as an example of how to resist pressure from powerful blocs. India is not only standing for itself, it is inspiring others to stand up too. And when one nation's courage sparks a movement, the entire world order begins to shift. That is why India's decisions carry so much weight. This independence creates both respect and fear. Respect because leaders know India is principled, consistent, and unwilling to compromise its sovereignty. Fear because they realize their influence over India is gone, and with it, their ability to dictate terms. India has proven that it is not a follower, it is a leader. And in today's interconnected world, that kind of leadership cannot be ignored, silenced, or controlled. India has broken free from the shadow of dependence and entered a new era where its choices are its own, and that truth alone is enough to make even the most powerful nations wary. India's military modernization has become one of the biggest reasons why the world respects and fears it today. For decades, India was seen as a country with immense potential, but limited capacity in terms of defense. That perception has changed dramatically. Today, India is building one of the most advanced, versatile, and powerful militaries in the world, not as an aggressor, but as a protector of its sovereignty and as a stabilizing force in Asia. This rise in defense power has sent a clear message. India is no longer vulnerable, and any nation that underestimates its strength does so at its own risk. The modernization is not just about numbers, it is about capability. India is investing heavily in cutting-edge technologies, from advanced fighter jets and drones to long-range missile systems and cyber defense. Each step shows that India is preparing for the challenges of the future, not just the threats of the past. Nations across the world are taking notice because they realize that India's defense strategy is built on foresight, not reaction. While many countries are stuck playing catch-up, India is planning decades ahead, ensuring that it will always stay relevant on the global battlefield. One of the most striking parts of this modernization is India's naval power. With the Indian Ocean being one of the most strategic waterways in the world, India's focus on strengthening its navy has made other global powers pay attention. Aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, and advanced warships are now part of India's growing fleet. This isn't just about defending coastlines, it's about projecting power, securing trade routes, and ensuring that no external force can dominate the region. The world knows that a strong Indian Navy means a strong Indian influence in global maritime affairs. At the same time, India has shown the discipline to focus on self-reliance in defense production. Instead of depending solely on imports, India is building its own weapons, tanks, missiles, and aircraft under initiatives like Make in India. This is not just about saving money, it's about creating independence, boosting domestic industry, and ensuring that no foreign power can cripple India's defense by cutting off supplies. This makes India a far more resilient and unpredictable force. A nation that can manufacture its own tools of defense is a nation that cannot be easily pressured or controlled. India's modernization is also about integration, combining traditional military strength with new domains like space and cyber. India's ability to launch satellites, build anti-satellite weapons, and defend itself against cyber warfare means it is ready for conflicts of the 21st century, where battles are not only fought on land, air, and sea, but also in space and the digital world. This creates respect because it shows India is technologically advanced. It creates fear because it shows India can counter modern threats at the highest level. Perhaps most importantly, India is pairing its military strength with restraint. Unlike some nations that flaunt their weapons to intimidate others, India demonstrates discipline. It shows the world that power does not always mean aggression. It can also mean stability. This balance between strength and responsibility makes India one of the most respected military powers today. Other nations fear India's defense capabilities, but they also respect its maturity in using them. That dual perception, fear, and respect is the hallmark of a truly great power. India's role in global diplomacy has shifted from being a participant to being a leader, and this is one of the strongest reasons why the world both respects and fears it today. For decades, the narrative was that India was a developing nation that had potential but lacked the voice or influence to shape world events. That idea has been shattered. Today, India is a nation that speaks with authority, commands attention, and is capable of steering conversations on global platforms in ways that even the biggest powers cannot ignore. The key to this transformation lies in India's consistency and confidence in defending its interests while also presenting solutions to global problems. At international summits like the United Nations, G20, BRICS, and SCO, India does not come as a silent observer. It comes as a nation that has earned its place through sheer resilience, rapid economic rise, and independent policies. When India speaks about climate change, digital innovation, or global security, the world listens, not because of sympathy, but because of credibility. India has shown results, whether it's being one of the fastest growing economies, a leader in renewable energy, or a champion of digital infrastructure. Diplomacy is not only about negotiation, it is about perception. India has mastered the art of balancing relationships with rival powers without compromising its sovereignty. On one side, it has deep ties with the United States. On the other, it has a strong partnership with Russia. At the same time, it maintains its independent stance with China and builds strong connections with the global South. This multi-alignment is not weakness, it is strength. It demonstrates that India cannot be boxed into someone else's agenda. No nation can dictate India's foreign policy, and that is why global leaders tread carefully when dealing with it. They know India will not bend under pressure. India's diplomatic rise is also about timing. At a moment when the world is divided between East and West, developed and developing, North and South, India positions itself as the bridge. It represents the voice of emerging nations while also engaging with superpowers. This unique positioning makes India indispensable. Without India, no global solution can be complete. Whether it is trade negotiations, peace discussions, or climate agreements, India's signature is needed to give legitimacy. That is power, soft power wrapped in hard influence. Defining factor is India's leadership during crises. When the pandemic struck, India not only protected its own citizens, but also emerged as the pharmacy of the world, sending vaccines to over 100 countries. In times of energy crisis, India secured deals to ensure its people were protected, while also calling for fairness in global energy pricing. These actions built trust in India's word. Nations realized that India is not only capable of protecting itself, but also capable of lifting others. That is why it is respected. But it is also feared because this ability gives India immense leverage in international negotiations. Most importantly, Indian diplomats, especially leaders like Dr. S. Jaishankar, have redefined the tone of India's diplomacy. Their clarity, directness, and unwillingness to tolerate hypocrisy send shockwaves across international platforms. No longer does India play defensive, it plays assertive. This unapologetic style signals that India is done with the days of silence and compromise. It now speaks with the weight of a nation that has the population, the economy, and the military to back its words. This diplomatic rise is what makes the world pause before making decisions that affect India. It is what earns respect because India stands tall as a nation with principles and power. It is what instills fear because no country wants to stand against a nation that can rally billions of voices, command global influence, and fight back with credibility. India's diplomacy has transformed from reactive to proactive, and that transformation has changed the balance of global power forever. One of the most powerful reasons why the world respects and fears India today is its growing technological and defense capabilities. For decades, India was seen as a nation with potential, but not necessarily as a technological leader. That perception has changed dramatically. India is no longer simply following the trends set by others, it is setting new ones. From space exploration to digital infrastructure, from artificial intelligence to defense modernization, India has positioned itself as a force that combines innovation, resilience, and scale. This transformation has given India both admiration and caution from the rest of the world. India's achievements in space are among the clearest examples of this rise. The successful Chandrayaan-3 mission, which made India the first country to land on the moon's south pole, stunned the global community. This was not just about planting a flag. It was about demonstrating scientific and technological capacity at a fraction of the cost of other nations. Similarly, the Indian Space Research Organization has become a global leader in affordable satellite launches, giving India both commercial and strategic influence. Space is no longer just about science. It is about security and power. When India showcases such achievements, the world respects its innovation, but also understands the implications of India's expanding capabilities in areas that influence global defense and surveillance. On the digital front, India has created something the world cannot ignore: the largest digital identity and payments infrastructure. Systems like Aadhaar and UPI have transformed the lives of over 1 billion people while setting global benchmarks in financial inclusion and digital governance. Countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America look at India as a model to follow. Global tech giants, too, see India not only as a market, but also as a hub of innovation and talent. This ability to scale technology solutions for billions gives India an edge that few nations can match. Respect comes because India leads with innovation. Fear comes because India's self-reliance in digital technologies makes it less vulnerable to foreign pressure. Defense is another pillar of this growing power. India has moved away from being primarily an arms importer to building its own defense ecosystem, with initiatives like Make in India in defense. India is producing its own fighter jets, missiles, and naval assets. The BrahMos missile system, jointly developed with Russia, is among the fastest and most advanced in the world, and it has already attracted interest from other nations. India's nuclear capabilities, combined with its modernization of conventional forces, ensure that it cannot be threatened or bullied. For neighboring adversaries and even distant superpowers, this military edge is both respected and feared. Cybersecurity and artificial intelligence are also areas where India is stepping up significantly. With the rise of cyber warfare, nations understand that digital threats are as dangerous as traditional ones. India has invested in building its cyber defense systems while also nurturing its tech talent pool to drive AI, robotics, and data science innovation. This is crucial because the future of global power will not just be about armies and weapons, it will be about who controls information, algorithms, and data. India's strength in this domain signals that it will be a central player in shaping the digital battlefield of the future. What truly amplifies all of this is India's ability to combine scale with speed. No other country has shown the capacity to adopt, implement, and expand technologies at the level India has. Whether it is deploying vaccines, rolling out digital payments, or launching satellites, India does it in ways that capture global attention. This speed, combined with scale, makes India unpredictable in the eyes of rivals and inspiring in the eyes of allies. In conclusion, the world respects India because it has proven that it can lead in technology, science, and defense with determination and creativity. But it also fears India because these advancements are not isolated achievements. They are tools of power, leverage, and security that make India unshakable on the global stage. India has shown that it is not just keeping pace with the future, it is shaping it. And that reality changes how every nation views and treats India today. Let me tell you something, respect and fear are not accidents. They're the result of relentless work, clear choices, and the courage to stand when others expect you to kneel. India today commands both because it has built strength across every front: economy, diplomacy, defense, technology, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. That combination makes India not just a participant in history, but an author of it. This moment is proof that nations, like people, are defined by what they do when the pressure hits. India refused to be pushed, it refused to beg for permission, and it doubled down on self-reliance and strategic vision. That is why allies listen, rivals pause, and the world recalibrates. Respect follows results. Fear follows resolve. What's the lesson? Build your foundation. Train your economy, your institutions, and your character. Choose independence over convenience, strategy over applause, and action over excuses. When you do that, you don't need to shout. Your presence speaks loud enough. The world will take note not because you demand it, but because you earned it. Stand tall, keep strengthening, and let your work be the answer. When you move with conviction and capability, you don't just survive the storm, you become the storm everyone remembers.